Good morning, everyone. This is the first weekday from Düsseldorf, from the boat show. We're live here in Hall 11. If you happen to be here today, come by and say hello, because today is a very special day. Today is Macro Monday, and we have a few really cool guests to give us a little bit more insight in, filming and photographing the really small things. And this is also particularly interesting for us, right? Because we do not know anything about it. And we are really looking forward to hear what's actually going on in the small world. We have Evan Sherman at 11:15 to talk a little bit about videography. I don't know if you remember, that's the guy who came out with the video, I think 2 years or 3 years ago, where he had like amazing sound effects, to enhance the immersion with the little critters. And at 2 p.m. we have Simon Buxton here. He basically is occupying the best macro spot in the world, Lembeh in Indonesia. And he'll also be here in a couple of minutes because he's one of the sponsors for the show, and he is the one giving away a free stay at Lembeh Resort, which is pretty cool. So we're happy to learn a little bit more about it. And then at 3:30 we have Andrew Marriott here, and this one is also going to be very interesting because he will display on his laptop how to post-process photos, especially for beginners. So that could be really interesting. But we start with the daily artwork update. Naomi, you're sitting there, you always hear everything that's going on stage. What was your favorite thing yesterday?
Yesterday, I really loved Julie's film, Armor. That was incredible. Just the way that she moves in the water. I know how difficult that is because I've attempted things like that myself. And she just looks so organic, just like a leaf in the wind. That was just breathtaking.
Yes. We all love this one.
Yes.
I think it's also super cool because the things that she does are just like completely different from everything else.
Oh, and just so beautifully done. Yeah.
And Vanessa, I think, what is your favorite highlight from the guests so far?
Well, my favorite highlight must have been Alex Mustard. First of all, because like Julie, he was live Skyping from the Cayman Islands. And this guy has so much knowledge. It's just suck up everything he says. And I've got his book at home and I read it. And he's such a nice guy. So I really hope to meet him one day. And it's so informative, everything. So I think all of our viewers are going to really benefit from all of that knowledge.
Yeah.
Plus him answering all the questions later on. That's super cool.
Yeah, and we're actually working on doing another session with him on Sunday. We're not sure whether we can fit it in and do it, but he already offered to do that. And check the video, guys. It's from the day before yesterday. And there's a lot of questions on that video as well that Alex was answering directly under the post. So it's kind of having an audience with with one of the top leading photographers.
Yeah.
Really, he was really kind to accept all the real world beginner questions and very patiently explain everything about it. That's super cool. Okay, so Lembeh, I think to talk a little bit about Lembeh and NAD-Lembeh, the resort there that is collaborating with us, is a really good start for the Macro Monday. So let's have a look at a little image clip about it, and after that we speak to Simon Buxton a little bit more about it. Are we ready to run this, Tony? Great. Hey, Simon.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Good.
You know what? I think I'm really jealous, about you, because I remember a couple of years ago when I was talking to some of the housing brands to go like, can we maybe collaborate in things that we do? They always go like, look at this guy. He's sitting right there in the top spot, using like super high efficient cameras and knows what he's doing. Like if you one day be somebody like him, then maybe we can do something together. So I think like you are actually been living a long time on a very rewarding spot, like right there. Is that something that becomes normal?
Yeah, I think you do take it for granted. I've been there for 12 years now. So you do begin to sort of become complacent. So to begin with, it was exciting, seeing everything new. Then you get a bit bored. You start doing some real work, renovating the resort, doing business. Then you get bored of that, so you go back to the photography. Okay, I'll try video again. Started shooting video again. Played around with that for a few years. Then it starts to become too much like hard work. So then I went to blackwater photography because I didn't like editing. And then that was my last thing, was blackwater photography. And then this last time I was there, just over Christmas, I was shooting mostly stills in the daytime because I haven't done that for about 4 years.
So you're doing video and photo at the same time, kind of?
Well, I tried. You can't switch in the day because it's a completely different mindset. So you end up composition-wise, anticipating the moment, and everything is completely different with video. Whereas for still photography, it's also less pressure in the evenings in terms of editing and downloading and things like that, which is better when you have kids, so you can spend some time with the family as well. Whereas with video, you have to be on it.
Just guys, don't get it wrong. If he's saying like, and then you go back to do a little video and things like that, it's not just like the normal things you do. I heard a lot about your technical experiences, like high-speed cameras and sliders underwater. Like all the things that guys dream about being able to do, but only get to do that during a little bit of a holiday. But you live there and you like have like an underwater studio kind of thing there.
Yeah, basically on the reef just in front of where we live. It was easy for me to go diving there. I could dive on my rebreather and whatever and stay for a long time. So I was able to really get to know just that little bit of reef and sand and stuff like that, and then start monitoring behavior and then diving it all day to make sure I could get the shots like the Banggai cardinal fish yawning and things like that, which you can still do on a normal 75-minute dive, but you have to have a bit more luck. If you can just plug away at it for one afternoon or a day, then you can usually get results.
Amazing. Hey, tell us, what makes Lembeh such an amazing spot? And where is it? Like, people might not really know about it. Like, where is it and why is it so particularly perfect for that? It's east of Singapore is, I guess, the easy way to describe it. If you know where Singapore is, it's a little to the east of there, north of Australia. It's almost all the way over to Papua. And it just seems to be a hotspot for macro life. We do have nice corals and big sea fans and schools of fish and things, but that's more on the outside of the strait, on the other side of the island. And then just in terms of the macro photography, which is why most people come there, you're just able to concentrate on it and just do it repetitively 3-4 times a day. And then you get into your groove after maybe the second day. First day on holiday when you arrive is usually a bit of a write-off. But then you're just going at it every day. The dive guides are not diving a dive site just to go on a pretty tour. They're diving there looking for something. So they'll tell you before the dive, hey, we're probably going to see a hairy frogfish. They do the famous 100% no guarantee thing, but it's pretty likely if we're going to a dive site, we know what we're looking for. Which just means that you can pick your lensing, you know what to expect, and you can, 90%, 95% of the time you get a good result. So it's a very convenient procedure for image makers, and your clients
absolutely
are mostly image makers.
Yeah, I think 99%. I mean, you get the occasional partner, whether it be a husband or a wife who's maybe not as much into it, but by the end of the 4th day, they're asking if they can rent a camera because they're starting to get the bug and the habit.
Okay. Because, I mean, since we give away a stay there, like, to feed the audience a little bit about what they can expect. Like, you arrive there, and then, like, how is a usual normal day of diving there?
Yeah, I mean, normally you would arrive the evening before you start diving. You take 1 hour to get from the airport onto the island, onto the resort. Then you get up in the morning around 7. Sorry, it sounds early, but we go a little bit earlier than other people so we can get in the water first. And and also for my staff as well, that means they've got a shorter day. So in the water at 7, on the boat at 7:30, in the water about 7:45. You go out for 2 dives, around 75 minutes each, assuming you are good enough on your air to last that long. Each buddy team gets their own dive guide, so you and your buddy have a little private tour. Go find the animals you want to see in the deeper sections, around 25 meters. Then come up in the shallows by about 35 minutes, and you spend the majority of the dive in the shallow water from 15 meters and shallower, just sort of having fun, looking around, finding something that you like. And because you've got your own private dive guide for your buddy team, you can spend quite some time with the thing you like.
You get like half of a dive guide for yourself?
Yes.
That's amazing.
So the other thing as well with that is if you find something really special, of course, you must share it with your colleagues on the boat. So down at 30 meters, maybe if we're going down for the pygmy seahorses, then we ask the dive guides will, say, take 5 shots, swap over, someone else have a go. But in the shallows, when you find something that everybody can find, like these guys or something like that, then it's take your time.
What fascinates you about the small things? What is it all about?
It's more, as from a videographer side of things, it's about behavior. It's when you go diving, let's say, in other places, I don't want to speak bad about anywhere else, but you're often rushed a little bit. The pace of the dive is, come on, let's go see the next thing, let's go see the next thing, we need to get back to the boat. You don't have any of that in Lembeh, so you can concentrate on the small stuff. And then it's just shooting behavior if you're shooting video. And then with still photography, it's having the time to be creative with light and camera settings, depth of field, really practicing techniques, a bit like what Vanessa was mentioning that you see in Alex's book. You can practice all that stuff very easily in Lembeh.
Okay. And what is included in the package?
I believe it's a 7 nights package with morning dives included for 2 people sharing the same room.
Oh, cool. So I can bring my friend?
Yes, you bring your friend, you both share the same dive guide. So bring somebody who you like.
That's a good idea.
Not just like above water, but you like diving with them, because if you're the buddy, sometimes you love people above the water, but underwater you can't stand them. So pick someone you like.
Okay. And like one thing I always ask myself, why is this such a unique place? Like, how do all the critters end up there? Or what makes it so convenient?
The area is very rich in iron, and there's a hypothesis that maybe all of the iron in the sand helps the plankton settle, so we're just always getting new things settle, which I see in the blackwater diving, of course. And then the other one is we have the 2 monsoon seasons in Asia. You have a wind basically from the south and one from the north, and that provides us with massive upwelling. When we get the weather from the south, it makes it very rough in the south, but you get a lot of upwelling and cold water, which seems to kickstart a cycle with plankton blooms and things like that. So every year we get a fresh start.
So it's like geologically, it's a strait, or it's a...
It's a strait, yeah. So, but because when the monsoon comes from the south, it pushes up a lot of cold, rough weather. In the strait, we're safe. We're fine. We have less dive sites, maybe at that time of the year. In the 2 periods where you don't have wind, you can dive every dive site. But as the wind changes, you dive different dive sites throughout the year. So we don't have an off season, but some dive sites do get a break from divers.
Oh, you don't have an off season?
No, we're year round.
Oh, that's super nice. So I assume there's a lot of professional productions and things are being done there?
Yeah, we've had, that's why I started buying expensive cameras basically, is because I wanted to get into that piece of the pie and that slice of the market. But we do host various productions. Unfortunately, they put lots of NDAs on you and you can't talk about it. But I think we've hosted all of the big blue chip stuff. Generally presenter-based programs, they don't really come to Indonesia that often because it's so complicated with the permits.
I see.
But yeah, for the big ones, we've hosted them all.
And when we see you later at 2 o'clock, what do you have for us?
I've got some questions to answer from your lovely followers. If anyone has any more, please send them in now. I'll be talking mostly about still photography and technique from the questions that I've seen already. But then I also have some things on blackwater photography and videography. I've got a cool clip of a blanket octopus, which is quite rare. And then, it's just general technique, more of the geeky side of things rather than the artistic side of things.
Cool, cool, cool. Blackwater diving is going to be amazing because I'm really curious to hear about that. Is that kind of a new thing?
No, it's been, I think the first people to do it were photographers that are probably about the age of retiring right now. Over in Hawaii, they did it in I think the 90s. But it was a very different style to what we do nowadays. Now with lithium batteries, you can put lights down that last for hours. So you can really attract a good plankton bloom, which then brings in the bigger predators and the cool fish and things like that.
Okay, just in a few simple words, Blackwater photography, what is it actually? Because I think some people might not know.
Essentially, you hang or place a light on the sand, and then you wait sometimes just a minute or two, sometimes 15, 20 minutes, for the small plankton to start coming in that would sort of disturb you on a normal night dive. And then, as that's happening, you start to find bigger predators come in because they can hear all of the movement of all the plankton and they come in to feed on it. So you start seeing flounders and mantis shrimps and other cool larval stage fishes. So you're seeing things that normally in the old days would only have been caught with a net being dragged by a boat. So a lot of scientists are very interested because they're actually seeing these things sort of not preserved in a specimen bottle and broken by a net on the way up. They are in full, perfect living condition. So it's very interesting to the scientific community as well as photographers who just find it cool to see what they can find.
Looking forward to hear all about the challenges to actually focus and film and do things with them.
It's very frustrating, but I like that kind of thing. Okay. So
cool.
That's okay.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're going to see you at 2 o'clock. Good. So cool. Yeah. And before we go ahead answering some of the community questions, I'd like to show you the promised update on Naomi's artwork. What is new in the art department?
Well, I'm really looking forward to
Let me show
today,
you that.
actually, playing with all of these. The 3 macro life ones will be really fun. This was the art of yesterday.
Let me see if we can.
I realize that it's
show.
actually really difficult to see in the
Yeah, it's very
screen
difficult to
like
actually
this.
put it.
So I've been
there.
posting them on my Instagram, but maybe we can post them all at the end, a little album on the behind the mask or something.
As you can see, guys, this is already something from the sardine run session that we had yesterday.
It's actually got metallic in it, so it's very hard to see. In this,
Okay. Cool.
But
Closer. Okay.
But
Look at that.
today-
Okay.
today's Macro Monday art is going to be exciting. I'm excited about what's going to happen today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you guys happen to be here, come by and enjoy a little bit the calm atmosphere in Naomi's art bubble. Okay, great. Let's, because this is the family style morning warm up live stream, let's answer a few questions that went more or less straight to the Behind the Mask team, and I tried to squeeze a few information out of Vanessa. Gary wants to know, I've been told to use highest resolution and the lowest possible ISO. Do you agree?
I would agree, but it really depends on what you want to do. Like, highest resolution doesn't really make sense if you're going to have shaky footage. So, lowest ISO possible, that's definitely a yes, because you want to avoid noise.
Wait, is that a photography or videography question?
I don't know. I'm talking about videography in this case.
Okay, I think we have to make sure we talk about videography.
Yeah,
okay.
so this is videography. So lowest ISO to avoid, of course, noise, or at least lower ISO settings. And highest resolution is not always the case. You don't always need highest resolution. I mean, if you want to, if your rig is like not properly balanced and you have a lot of shakiness in your footage, then you want to have a higher frame rate to slow down in post-production.
Very good point.
Because if you have, it doesn't make sense to have 4K, 30p, and a nice, good resolution, and then it's like shaky footage.
But
so
if I shoot higher frame rates, like double the frame rate,
yeah.
Why is it helping with the shaking? How?
Well, it's stretching out the frames. So if you have 25 frames a second, that's the normal frame rate, and you film in, let's say, 50 frames a second, then 1 second turns into 2 seconds. So if you film at 100 frames per second, 1 second turns into 4 seconds. So during the course of your bump, you're slowing down the movement, so you're taking away the shakiness, essentially.
Exactly.
So it's a trick to keep the footage nice and steady.
Yes, and I think the automatic stabilizers in the software is also much easier to
Yeah.
correct the shakiness if you have more information by having more frames. And I totally agree. I think resolution is not a huge thing, really. I mean, you read things about 8K and stuff, but in the end, everything ends up on the internet at like HD or even 720p or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you have to choose between frame rate and resolution, in my humble opinion, you go for the frame rate.
Sure.
Right. Okay. Hi, Mom. From Eric. I'm going to the Gojo. I wish also, one question, what features would you prioritize for a compact camera if the primary purpose is underwater filmmaking? Excited to watch you guys at the show. Bummed I can't meet you in person yet. Someday I will. The joke with the Gojo was actually a good laugh when we sorted everything out. I think that show is right after the boat show.
Right.
Question is about compact cameras. Like, what do you need to have in mind? You've been collecting those questions, so I'm really happy that you can answer that.
Yeah, well, I don't use compact cameras, so but still, my recommendation would be, as we just said, make sure that it has higher frame rates. Make sure that you can set everything to full manual. So even with a compact camera, you should be able to set everything in full manual, because if you set everything to automatic, then...
How do you manually focus with a compact camera?
Well, some compact cameras have like a focus ring on it. So like the Sony RX100 does have a ring, and you can do a manual focus with it. Otherwise, you could set the autofocus to your subject, and then if it's possible for the camera, you can turn it to manual. So it just stays there.
Push autofocus.
Yeah.
Like you push, and then it focuses, and
then
let go, and it's not focusing anymore. Okay.
So that's something that I would really look out for. And of course, that it has some sort of a good white balance. But that really depends on the camera model, and there I would really recommend to go to the like underwater store or shop, talk to them, and ask them which camera is best for your needs. And also it also depends on your budget and which camera you want to get. So stabilization, optical image stabilization would be also.
Do you really need that?
Well, the small compact cameras, they're very shaky. So if you don't have like a perfect buoyancy with it, then every stabilization option that you have, you should use.
Why are they shaky?
Well, because they're so small.
Well,
it's like a float. No, how do you call them? The little floors. It's the English word for floors. Float? Is it a float?
I think it's like, you said it's like a physical law that if you want to have something, hold something stable in your hands, and your hands are very close together, that it's like very shaky in the middle sometimes. So that's why even if people ask, okay, my GoPro footage is so shaky because I have like this stick and it's in front, then it's like the worst thing you can do because it's never going to be stable.
Yeah. Plus, if you take it out, then it's like...
Exactly. So the advice is always get the handle big enough, like a bicycle, what do you call it? I don't know. And have the hands far apart from each other. Because even if you move a little bit here, it's not going to move as much in the middle.
No.
Well, so that's always a good hint for that. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Critics.
Okay.
Any tips if the camera is not able to autofocus?
Well, essentially, we just answered that question.
Use a manual focus, But if you can't, you do that because given you don't have a manual focus, what would you do?
If the camera cannot focus on a subject, then just move the camera a bit further away from the subject, because maybe you're in that minimal focusing distance, so the camera is not able to focus properly because you're too close to the object or subject.
Let's think about, you have an environment which is a very misleading focus elements. Like you have a lot of particles in the water, and then there's a whale swimming behind, and every time you hold it up to the whale, everything is focused in the back, in the foreground, and you only see the particles in the water. In the background, there's like a blurry thing going by. What could you do in that case?
In that case, well, if you have that option to focus on another object to get the focus right, and then switch it to manual to lock the focus.
Yeah.
And then you can just
That's
move
a
it
great
back
idea.
again.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the question where it's directed to. If it's directed to like the camera.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like there's someone having like a camera that is not working well in autofocus, and obviously it's not having a functionality where you can actually adjust the focus manually. I remember we had the same issue a couple of times, especially when we wanted to shoot higher frame rates, like super slow motion with the GH4. You remember? Because there was no push autofocus, there was nothing for the slow motion setting for the camera. So I remember when we were in the Galapagos and there was like a lot of sea lions, I had to put it in auto mode, focus, then go back into the slow motion mode and just hope that the focus stays the same, and then just like hold it and don't do anything.
No.
So switch to manual mode, even if you're not able to change the focus in manual mode. So just focus before, maybe on the fin, or on the boat, just something the same distance that the whale would have in that example, and then go to manual and just leave it like that. It's actually very convenient.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about it anymore. Matthias asking, the compact cameras I have tried all have a bit of a problem with the noise. Is that just how they are designed, or is there some way you can actually reduce and improve the way the camera picks up noise underwater?
Well,
we talk about picture noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the grainy things,
like grain in a
grain in the picture. Okay.
So it's well, compact cameras have a smaller sensor. So the smaller the sensor, the more noise you're going to introduce to your image. So even with photography or videography, it's the same thing. So what you can do is, as we said already in another question, you can reduce the ISO to the minimum, because the higher the ISO, the more noise you're going to introduce. Light is like the most important part here. So get the best possible lights, or the strongest lights that you can get, or use the best ambient light that you can get. So clear water, and maybe go a bit shallower, and just use as much light as you can, essentially, because that's going to introduce noise if you don't.
Yeah.
Noise comes from because it's just too dark. So the camera sensor cannot pick up the whole information of what the camera is seeing.
I think another good idea is to have a plugin in your editing software afterwards. Like there is a plugin called Need-Video. Costs a little bit of money, but it's very powerful. And I think they have it for the Adobe software and for Final Cut Pro as well.
Right, and there's another from Red Giant. It's Denoiser 3, I think now.
You use this one?
I use both. Sometimes the one, sometimes the other, just depends. But I use both. But a Need-Video tends to work more stable, I've noticed.
Okay.
But the Denoiser works pretty well as well.
Okay. So that's... we can do one more. Huh? We have a few more minutes. Michael asking, what is the best shutter speed for video? I know it is usually about double the frame rate, but why is that? And can it be very different?
We've got a whole episode on shutter speed, so just go and watch that.
Come on, be nice.
Okay, the 180-degree shutter angle rule comes from the filming industry from back in the days when you used to use film and you had to cover up half of the whatever. It's you can just Google it and just read through the whole process. So the trick is to have more cinematic-looking footage, is to introduce motion blur that is natural to your eye, so what you actually see. And it's 180 degrees shutter angle rule, which means it's double the frame rate. But of course, rules are there to be broken, so you can increase the shutter speed when you have like action. I don't know if you did that at a sardine run, like when you have a lot of action going on, you can increase the shutter speed to have it like an action film. And then you reduce the motion blur, so everything looks crisp. That's when you would use it, when there's a lot of movement going on and you want to sort of like make it a bit more dramatic for the viewer. So lowering the shutter speed is going to give you a lot more motion blur. So it's going to be like a dreamy whatever. So if you lower down the shutter speed to the minimum, when you do like a hand movement, it's going to like ghost style blurriness in the image. So you can definitely use different shutter speeds. It's just you have to know when to use it and why to use it, and just use it wisely for the purpose. So
yeah, sometimes the eye is always already the highest it can get. The aperture is already too open. It's difficult to focus. So what can you do? You can
A bit.
fiddle a little bit around with
Yeah.
the shutter speed, but it's gonna affect the image and make everything a little bit more blurry.
No.
Okay, I think that's the last one. What is your top tip for managing low light levels in videography?
Okay, that sort of covers the same thing with the noise. Increasing ISO, increasing the light source, opening the aperture, and then this light. To manage
If you
low
don't have
levels.
light, then you have to find a way to compensate that. And there are different cameras that can manage that differently.
Yeah.
The bigger the sensor, the better it is. And some cameras even have like a double ISO thing where you can have less noise with higher ISOs and things like that. This is generally, I think, always an issue with underwater photography and filming. Prepare, especially if you use like filters. You know, we use
then you
like
block a lot of
some
light.
of the Kelvin spectrum filters in front of your lens, which will take away a little bit of light.
Yeah.
And if you go to like special places where there is not much ambient light, like the Orcas in Norway or whatever, then you always deal with this problem. So bigger sensor, and and probably double ISO would help.
Yeah, you can just choose a camera that's really good in low light. Like, I don't know, Sonys are usually really good in low light. Like
and the Panasonic GH5S is good in low light.
it's better than a GH5S, the GH5, yes.
The Sony one.
No, the GH5S is better than a GH5.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the S.
The S, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Let's see if we can put that in, because this is next coming up is Evan in half an hour. He's already sitting there, totally chilled. We're gonna rip him apart about macro filmmaking in half an hour. You're gonna love the guy. He's a cool guy. Good. All right. See you in half an hour.